get this put on just quickly. And we may have some others come in as we get moving through the program tonight, or coming in even tomorrow. But we're going to be covering quite a bit of material over the next few hours, and today and tomorrow. And I want to make sure that everyone's able to keep up. So I've given you some different methods to be able to do that. Number one, everyone should have a workbook. Did everyone get a workbook that's able to read and do such things? All right. I don't suppose the toddlers need workbooks tonight, but who knows? Maybe to keep them occupied. So, all right. Secondly, there will be the fill in the blanks will be up on the screen. So if you don't catch it while I'm speaking, you can catch it from the screen up front there. And if you don't catch it from me speaking or from the screen, then wait until we have a break, and then I'll go back. But if we have a lot of pauses saying, what was that, what was that, what was that, then this will actually be a 2-week course instead of a 2-day course, all right? And so help me with that if you will. Fear is a massive issue in our day, and it's something that everyone in our culture is aware of as far as being an issue. One of the largest prescription fields is for anti-anxiety medication. It's a major industry in America, this issue of anxiety and anti-anxiety medication. As a matter of fact, it contributes to a significant amount of drug addiction in our culture because of the way that we have moved into more of a symptom treatment society. We no longer treat the source of problems. We now decided to treat symptoms, and so we do that with all kinds of medications, but it doesn't solve the problem. It only masks the problem. And so what we're going to do here is vastly different than what you would encounter in most circumstances, because we are not interested in putting a Band-Aid over the problem of fear. We're interested in trying to help you deal with it in a real and substantial way in your life so that it no longer has dominance over you. And I certainly understand that fear can have such a dominance over people that it literally incapacitates many people. They're unable to function in a normal way because of anxieties and fears in their lives. And so we're going to talk about a number of things as we go through here, but we're going to start with this idea of the physiology of fear and how fear affects your body. And you might say, well, I already know how fear affects my body. My teeth chatter, my knees knock together, I get clammy skin, and I hyperventilate, and I know all that stuff already. But I hope actually as we go through this to shed a little bit of light on the way emotions interact with your physical state, okay? And sometimes what we think as one thing is actually something else. And so as we start this, first of all, let's get an understanding of the nature of your emotions. The nature of your emotions. Emotions are bodily sensations, feelings triggered by changes in body chemistry. I knew it! I had a chemical imbalance, right? Well, emotions are the sensation, the feelings of our emotions, if you will, are triggered by changes in our body chemistry. And there are a number of things that can cause those changes in our body chemistry. As a matter of fact, bodily disease and trauma change body chemistry and can affect our feelings. You get a cold and you're going to feel kind of down. You get sick and you just don't feel good. You don't feel like yourself. Most notable are dysfunctions of the endocrine system or central nervous system. They cause things like fatigue, infections, post-surgery effects. My daughter just had surgery on Wednesday. She just doesn't feel good right now because of the trauma that surgery has inflicted upon her body. So down feelings in themselves are not sinful. They can just be induced by a physical health condition. The body and the heart interact with one another in important ways. And when I say heart here, I'm not talking about the physical beating heart. I'm talking about your inner man, your inner person. Okay? The Bible uses the term heart to refer to our soul, right? And so when we talk about heart here, if I'm talking about a physical organ, I'll let you know. But most generally, I'll be talking about your inner person, okay? And so the body can be a stumbling block to the heart, meaning physical ailment, physical trauma can cause me to feel down inside, not to feel like I want to feel, right? To feel discouraged, to feel even depressed at times. But also, the heart, how I feel inside, can be a stumbling block to the body. It actually works both ways. My physical body, being in trauma, can affect my inner man, my heart, but also, if my heart's not right, it can affect my physical body. And it goes both directions in this. So, bodily disease and trauma can change body chemistry. And then ingested chemicals can change body chemistry. For instance, medications taken for non-psychiatric problems are the single most frequent cause of negative feelings that mimic counseling problems. Many times I've had people come in for counseling, and not just myself, but I know this is a situation I've talked to a lot of different people about, that people have come in for counseling. And, they come in and they say, well, I'm depressed. You say, okay, well, I'm going to counsel you for depression. But then we have them fill out a questionnaire and we find out they're on medication for anxiety. And you look up the medication and find out that one of the side effects of the anxiety medication is depression. Now, you can't counsel that out of somebody. You cannot counsel out something that is created by producing a chemical imbalance in your body. And so you'd be chasing yourself around. And by the way, a lot of doctors have people doing this. They put them on medication for anxiety, and then they put them on medication for depression, and the one causes depression and the other causes anxiety, and their whole body chemistry is just in this constant turmoil. They don't know whether they're coming or going. It's a big, big issue in our day. We call it, in counseling, we call it treatment-engendered problems. Also, caffeine. Caffeine is the most widely used drug in the U.S. An overconsumption of the stimuli of caffeine is behind many anxious feelings and agitations. We live in a day, and we deal with a lot of addiction issues here in our church and in our counseling ministry. But I'm telling you, this thing of the methods or the proclivity of people toward, if you want to grab a couple of those books, the proclivity of people, come on over, toward they call them energy drinks. But there's people, literally, if you watch the news, there's people dying because they're, in essence, on speed. They have so much caffeine in their system that their heart can't handle it, and they're having heart attacks and dying, and it's literally killing people. And so we live in a day when things like that are an issue, and those chemicals that we ingest, whether it be a prescribed medication, whether it be a illicit drug, something that would be illegal, which obviously also affects body chemistry and feelings, or whether it be something you can buy at 7-Eleven, and you could buy other things at 7-Eleven legally, alcohol and anything such as that. But ingested chemicals, they change our body chemistry, they change our feelings. Behavior, and this is not a fill in the blank, it was supposed to be, I made an error on a couple of these, but behavior changes our body chemistry. Now, choices about our exercise, for instance, change our body chemistry. If you decide to get up and exercise, you feel tired at first, but it doesn't take very long, and you start to feel better. You feel good, because that exercise stimulates things, production of endorphins in your body. And endorphins are morphine-like hormones which produce a euphoric feeling. Exercise dissipates excessive adrenaline. And your choices about whether or how much you exercise can certainly affect the way that you feel. Choices about sleep change body chemistry. Most people are sleep deprived. In addition, they seldom fully relax mentally and physically, and a relaxed body and a relaxed mind actually turn off the effects of the sympathetic nervous system and the adrenaline and cortisol production and so forth, and it helps you rest, and that good rest will help you feel better. Someone who doesn't sleep for a period of... One of the problems with insomnia is someone who doesn't sleep for a period of time starts to go a little crazy. You don't get good rest, and your mind doesn't purge and cleanse out those toxins that it builds up. Your body will not rest while you push. Your body will rest when your mind is at rest. I've had times when, man, I was just focused on trying to solve an issue. You know what I'm talking about. And I go to bed and I don't sleep at all. I lay there thinking all night long about that situation, that problem, that trouble, or whatever, and it overwhelms me, and I get up tired the next morning. I don't get up rested the next morning. And I feel bad the next day. Why? Because that worry and anxiety kept me from resting, from my mind being at rest. Your choices determine when you sleep, and generally how well you sleep, and therefore they affect the way that you sleep. We live in an entertainment day where it's, people sit up till midnight or later watching television. They go to bed and pull out their phone and lay in bed, scrolling through Facebook or something along those lines. Pinterest, ladies. Hopefully not you guys, all right? But anyway, I'm just joking. Scrolling through their phone, and then we wake up and we scroll through the phone, or we turn on, and we're always bombarding ourselves with various, stimulus, which actually hinders our rest. It hinders us. Choices about, you're not going to like this one, diet. Choices about diet change body chemistry. What you put into your mouth affects the way that you feel. Listen, I love bacon. But if all I ate was bacon, it wouldn't take very long and I wouldn't feel so good. I'd be missing some things that my body needs. And so that choice in my diet would affect my feelings. Additionally, thoughts change body chemistry. We need these at the back of the room. If we could take these to the back of the room. Thoughts change your body chemistry. Now, the thoughts and conclusions of your mind affect the way that you feel. Now, get this really clear, because this is a foundational point from where we're starting here to where we're going, okay? The thoughts that you allow to cultivate in your mind will affect how you feel. Thoughts are statements that we make to ourselves, right? So a thought is me talking to me. It's me communicating with me and mulling over, cultivating, how do I think about this? How do I feel about this? And so forth. I saw this and I thought it was kind of funny. I don't know if anyone, can you read it up there? It says maybe the whales would be okay staying in the water. And that's Noah and his wife, obviously, in the ark. Two of every... Anyway. Thoughts. Got to think it through a little bit. The words we say to ourselves, worry, now listen, worry is not a feeling, it creates a feeling. That's very important. Did you get it? Worry isn't a feeling, but it does create a feeling. Worry is a thought. It's wrong thinking that I have in my mind, that I'm spending time on, and it creates a feeling within me. There was a time years and years ago, my wife and I first got married. We've been married 23 years. We'll be married 24 years this October, so just less than a month now. But we first got married. We moved into a little apartment, and I got this job. I was selling in western Kansas and eastern Colorado. I sold office supplies, and so I'd have to go to these little towns and call on all these businesses and so forth. And I was over in Colorado, and there was a snowstorm that hit. And so this was pre-cell phone time for us, so nobody but the really, really rich had cell phones out in western Kansas, especially because, there was no one to call anyway. But I was over there, and it started snowing, and I got to asking about it. They said, well, it's supposed to be a bad storm according to the news station. And so I thought, well, I'll go ahead and start heading home. So I did, but the storm hit quickly, and it was near whiteout conditions almost immediately, so I drove slowly. I got home safely. When I got to my door, I went to open the door, and it was locked. And that sounds normal for here, but we were in western Kansas. No, we didn't lock our doors in western Kansas. So, the door was locked. That was really odd. So I knock on the door, and my wife opens the door, and she's obviously been weeping tremendously. The door swings open, and she goes, wham, right into my chest. And she says, "You're a jerk," and slammed the door. And I thought, I haven't even been here. And we've only been married a couple months. How'd she find out already, But finally, she opened the door. I went in. Why? What's wrong? Oh, she was just uncontrollable, sobbing and all this. And she said, that storm hit, and I watched the news, and they said how bad it was, and you didn't call, and you weren't here, and no one knew where you were. And I just imagined I've only been married a couple months, and I'm already going to be a widow. He's dead in a ditch somewhere. And she built all this up in her mind. She had that conversation, and it affected her physical feelings, and even affected her physical body. Her body didn't affect her feelings. Her mind did. Her heart, how she was thinking. All right? So worry isn't a feeling. Worry creates a feeling. Ultimately, to conquer worry, you must begin to track and challenge your thoughts. Now get this. Very important. You must begin to track and challenge your thoughts, not track and react to your feelings. So often, we have a tendency to just be reactive to the feelings that we have, instead of trying to solve the source of the feelings. So if we're going to actually deal with it, we're going to have to learn how to deal with those thoughts in a proper and right way. Emotions are like warning lights, if you will, on the dashboard of your car. They indicate there's a problem under the hood with your thoughts. When those feelings start to get strong, you can know there's a thinking problem in here somewhere. I need to find out what it is, or determine what it is and deal with it. You see, the body meditates on what the heart initiates. My body will feel anxious and worried and fearful and all of those things because of my heart thoughts. And the way that I think in my heart produces those feelings in my body. God made our bodies to be servants to our hearts. Thoughts are the initiators. Thoughts are the initiators, and emotions are the indicators. So it's kind of like the spark plug. Your thoughts are like the spark plug to the engine of emotion. Okay? And that fire comes from your thinking, and it sets your emotions ablaze. Feelings of anxiety, fear, panic, frustration, bitterness, anger, discouragement, despair, depression, hatred, all of those type of things, though our thoughts are the indicators of those, and they initiate that. Positive emotions of joy, love, peace, and sense of well-being, contentment, and so forth, those are the indicators of right thinking. And negative emotions, fear, anxiety, worry, doubt, those are indicators of wrong thinking. Okay, now we're going to distinguish between good fear and bad fear at some point here as we go through. But we're primarily talking about bad fear, aren't we? We're not primarily talking about, a bear's chasing you. Run. That's not a bad fear, right? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Play dead. Isn't that right? Yeah, play dead. That's what they say. I think a bear wrote that manual, to be honest with you. So, now while the thoughts of the heart change body chemistry and therefore feelings, no body chemistry generates thoughts. That's very important to note. While your thoughts affect your body chemistry does not generate thoughts. Thoughts always originate in your heart, in your inner person. All right? That's why God holds us responsible for our thoughts. Thoughts are addressed by the Scriptures, and therefore these are spiritual issues. Our thinking is a matter of a spiritual concern. Here's what God says about thoughts. In Mark chapter number 7 and verse 21, he says, "From within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts." In 2 Corinthians 10 and verse number 5, he says, "Bring in captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ." Hebrews 4:12 says, "The Word of God is the final judge of our thoughts." He says, it's the discerner of the thoughts and the intents of the heart. The term the Bible uses for where we think is not brain. Brain is an organ in your body. Your brain is an organ in your body. Your heart does your thinking. That's your inner being. Your brain just stores the data. You mull it over, not in your brain, you mull it over in your heart. And your heart makes the decision. That's why the Bible says, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." Right? Your inner person. I threw some of these fun things in here just for a little levity as we go through. But the point of this discussion so far is to see that our feelings are indeed chemically induced, but chemical imbalances are not our problem. That's what the secular social structure wants to tell us, that, well, the reason you feel bad is because of a chemical imbalance. Well, your feelings are not the problem. It's what produced the feelings, and chemicals don't produce thinking. They can affect feelings, but they don't produce thinking. Thinking is what drives your emotions. Our lifestyle choices, the way that we think about life, it changes our body chemistry, and therefore it drives the vast majority of our negative emotions. And furthermore, it's a mistake to be focused on how we feel when the Scripture tells us to be focused on how we think and what we choose. Because if we operate life based on our feelings alone, we're going to make a lot of bad decisions. We have to operate life based on what's true, not just based on how we feel. Some days I feel like obeying the speed laws. Some days I don't. But if I don't obey the speed laws, there's a man who represents the truth to remind me that it doesn't matter if I feel like I want to speed. Right? Well, God gave us truth as well, and we ought to be careful that we don't make our decisions based simply on our feelings, but rather we are cautious to make sure that we make decisions based on truth. So let's talk for a few minutes then about the stages of fear. How does fear progress? So we know the issue here goes back to our thinking, a thinking problem, but how does it progress? To understand the topic of fear, you have to break it down into its progressions and each of their definitions. So we're going to do that. It must be noted that there is by definition good or beneficial fear. Like I mentioned a moment ago, if there is actual danger, fear motivates us to get out of the way, right? But the fear we're talking about for the purpose of this conference is those fears that debilitate us, the worries and anxieties and fears that debilitate life but don't help us in any fashion. They're not helping us accomplish anything. They're just hindering us and binding us because of our fear. Defining fear, however, in this negative sense, it's beneficial to our topic then. So fear is experienced in a matter of degrees and stages that range from a mild annoyance, a little bit of worry, to complete immobilization in their effect. And it's important to know what stage of fear you're dealing with or experiencing so that you can apply the proper solutions as we get down the road here and avoid the escalation of fear. In other words, it's good if you learn the stages of fear so that as worry starts coming in, you recognize it for what it is and you don't let it progress to further stages that make it more difficult to deal with later on. Okay? So the following definitions they're all taken out of the Webster's 1828 dictionary, and actually the progression here is adapted from the Webster's 1828 dictionary, which I thought was interesting. When I looked up the word fear, it gave a progression, and looking back through it, it was kind of interesting in that fashion. So we'll start with worry. This seems to be the least problematic as far as debilitating wise of the fear set. It means to tease, to trouble, to harass with importunity or with care and anxiety. It's also called careful in the Bible, which meaning in the Bible the word careful means full of care. It doesn't mean cautious. It means full of cares, full of worries, things that you're anxious about or so forth. The Bible talks about Martha and Mary and how Mary came and sat at the feet of Jesus, but Martha was so busy worried about whether there was enough provision for everyone that was in the house and worried about whether things were getting done in time and things were getting cleaned and all of this type of stuff. And Jesus said, Martha, you are careful and troubled about many things. Full of care. You're worried about so much, and it's affecting you, right? And Mary chose to worship me. That was the good thing. Worry begins by beginning a nagging on the mind, a distraction, and it gradually wears you down more and more. It's like a weight that you carry on your mind all the time, and you can still function with worry, but it takes a toll on your mind. Right? So you might be doing your job, but in the back of your mind, that nagging voice is saying, what's going to happen with this? What if this and what if that? And I don't know how to figure this out, and I'm really concerned. I'm worried. That nagging on your mind. Huh? Self-conscious. All right, and then next comes anxiety. Anxiety is a progression. I know that the word anxious is used in the definition of worry, but the terms here indicate a progression. Concern or solitude respecting some future event, future or uncertain, which disturbs the mind. You notice the increase in statement there? The first one said it's like a minor harassment. Now it's a disturbance, and even more than trouble or solicitude. And so it usually springs from fear or serious apprehension of evil. It involves a suspense respecting an event, and often perplexity of mind to know how to shape our conduct, not certain how to act. I looked up the word solicitous because it's obviously not a word that we use in our day, but it means to be careful, anxious, or concerned as respecting an unknown but interesting event, followed usually by about or for. We say a man is solicitous about the fate of his petition or the result of his negotiation. He's solicitous for the safety of his ship. In other words, he's worried, and his worry has come to the point of anxiousness, where now it's not just a nagging in the back of his mind, it's beginning to consume his mind. He's distressed about it, right? Anxiety is that point at which worry moves into a level of consuming in your thinking, and you have a hard time thinking about anything else. This is where negative emotions really begin to have a physical effect. It's not just wearing out your mind. It literally can physically affect your body. Anxiety has been linked to many physical afflictions. If you go to the doctor and say that you're having chest pains, the first thing they're going to ask you is, do you have any anxiety in your life? Stress. What are you worried about? Well, I'm worried about this pain going down my left arm. Well, first we need to get you to a psychiatrist, right? You think I'm joking? Just go and try it. I mean, if you have a lot of money to burn. It's what they do. They immediately go to anxiety, all right? Anxiety is a moderate to severe mental disturbance that can create physical pain. And by the way, not just chest pains. It creates a lot of other issues. A lot of physical issues, all right, including full-on physical panic attacks that can cause a person to hyperventilate, pass out, and all kinds of stuff. It creates a lot of physical issues. And then the next progression, fear. Fear is a painful emotion or passion excited by an expectation of evil or the apprehension of impending danger. Fear expresses less apprehension than dread, and dread less than terror and fright. The force of this passion, beginning with the most moderate degrees, may be thus expressed: fear, dread, terror, fright. Fear is accompanied with a desire to avoid or ward off the expected evil. Now, go back to anxiety. Anxiety is about things I don't know. But fear is about what I am fully expecting. Now, get that distinction, because that's very important. Because anxiety is, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. What if something bad happens? But by the time I do this in my mind long enough, what I actually tend to do is to create monsters that I become afraid of. So my anxiety actually generates something to become fearful of. Yes?
I was talking to my mom a couple weeks ago, and I could see her going through this progression. Dad passed away.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And we create that, to where we walk in and say, "Doctor, I'm going to lose my leg," and we create something to be afraid of in our mind. All right. Fear is the passion of our nature which excites us to provide for our security on the approach of evil. Now, again, when I talked a minute ago about good fear is, a guy, I'm walking down the street and a guy pulls out a gun, and I don't have mine, right? And good fear says, I need to get out of the way of that gun, right? But bad fear is, I'm walking down the street, there's no one on the street, but my mind begins to stir. What if someone with a gun? What would I do? My emotions begin to move inside of me, right? And then I hear or see a shadow and hear something, and all of a sudden, whoa! Right? There was nothing there, but my mind had created something to be afraid of. All right? So it produced from worry to fear. Fear is a sustained excitement of your mind that causes you to act upon your feelings. Now, you can worry that there will be tragedy, even be anxious and troubled about it, but when it becomes fully fears, when you begin to rearrange your circumstances to avoid impending doom, right? When it becomes fully fear is when you get your shovel out and start digging your bomb shelter in the backyard. You understand? You've changed your direction. You've changed your life in some fashion to avoid this impending evil. All right? Now then, dread. Dread is great fear or apprehension of evil or danger. It expresses more than fear, less than terror or fright. It's an uneasiness with or alarm, excited by an expected pain, loss, or other evil. We speak of the dread of evil, the dread of suffering, the dread of divine displeasure. It differs from terror, also being less sudden or more continued. And the issue there is continued. In other words, terror is an immediate it's the point of my full action, but dread can drone on for a while. Okay? It can last in a really heightened, fearful state for a prolonged period of time. It moves you beyond building your bomb shelter and you start becoming non-functioning because you can't go outside in case you get away from your supplies. People that become phobic about germs. They start off worried about it. Then they become anxious about it. Before long, they're carrying, and washing their hands nonstop and, hand sanitizer all the time. But then it progresses to a point, by the time it progresses to that point of dread, they just don't leave the house anymore. There's too many germs out there. Too much danger. Can't be around it. Right? And that happens in multiple areas of life. We would probably refer to this stage also as paranoid. And at this point, total focus is shifted to the perceived impending evil. Number 5 is terror. Terror is extreme fear, violent dread, fright, fear that agitates the body and mind. This is the point at which the person goes into the mental hospital. They are so non-functioning that they cannot be around anybody. They have to be treated in a state because they're just not able to be reasoned with in any fashion. There's no way to calm them at all. It's really the final stage in actuality of the extended effects of fear, because this is the point where a person becomes completely overwhelmed by their mind. They can't function at all. They lock themselves away completely. They cannot physically make themselves go beyond what they consider absolute safety, and they're no longer able to deal with anything. Now, number 6 is fright, and it's the last one here, but it's actually the only one that is short term. And that's kind of an interesting point, because fright is actually what we would think of when, someone scares us. We weren't expecting it, but immediately, whew, and when that happens, your body chemistry lets you know quickly, doesn't it? You get that sensation, that feeling that just overwhelms you quickly, but then it goes away. Okay? That's what fright is. It's sudden and violent fear, terror, a passion excited by a sudden appearance of danger. Expresses more than fear. It's distinguished from fear and dread by its sudden invasion, but its temporary existence. Fright usually being usually of a short duration, where fear and dread may be long continued. So the final stage of fright can occur at any given time by an adequate stimuli, but it should be noticed that by definition, that short-term condition, it passes as soon as that stimuli is removed. So the preceding stages, however, can be maintained. The 1 through 5 can be maintained for long periods of time, even lifetimes. Psalm 48 verse number 6 says, "Fear took hold upon them, and pain as a woman in travail." Long periods of fear and time. It begins to grip more and more and more until it consumes you completely. Right? So you see the little chart there that goes through here. Worry, and then worry leading to anxiety. That's disturbance of the mind. Anxiety leading to fear. Fear leading to dread, dread leading to terror, and then finally out there we have that short-term aspect of fright. The progression of this negative side of the emotion is increasingly debilitating to an individual. We're going to take a short break at this point to allow you to get a drink or use the restroom, and then we'll pick up at the next section in... We'll start back up at 8 straight up. So that gives you about 8 minutes or so to be able to take a break, stand up, stretch your legs, so forth. I want you to be able to hear everything, and some of the guys are falling asleep because they work hard all day long. Amen. But I'm just messing with you guys. All right.